The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I posed a question about whether the Liberal government will rein in reckless spending so many Canadians can live, eat, and own their own homes again. Instead of addressing this, they deflected to a permanent national food program. I didn't mention it, they did. Days later, the Liberal MP for Vancouver Centre tweeted, OMG. The Conservatives just defeated voting against the National Food Program, saying that parents would prefer to feed their own kids rather than have government feed them. What's the logic here? Mr. Speaker, the logic is this. Canadian parents want to escape poverty and choose what to feed their kids, and they want to provide for their family, not for the government to do so. They don't want to depend on handouts to make ends meet, to feed their families. They want good paying jobs. It's not clicking with this Liberal government with their knows best big government. That's their solution. I hear it all the time, the Liberal solutions. It is, when you hear about factories closing down, auto factories, forestry mills, businesses moving down to the States, it says they don't want to talk about this. They just say, hey, we'll provide, we'll supply, supports. The workers don't want supports. They want their jobs. And it's the Liberals that, through their economic policies, have just been destroying our economy, destroying livelihoods. And their out-of-control deficit has led to what? Spiraling inflation. Food costs are up 25% in the past 4 years. I can assure you that most Canadians are not making 25% more on their paychecks. And food insecurity now grips 39% of all Canadian households. Food banks have reported a doubling since 2019, and 1/3 of those coming are children. 700,000 visiting food banks monthly. And an overwhelming 96% of those that are coming to food banks saying it's the rising cost of living that is crushing them. Rising cost of living, which is crushing them. And where do you can point to these Liberals with their out-of-control spending. We're going to see what this budget is like tomorrow when it's presented. Because that out-of-control spending has led to deficits and debt service and increased debt. And just the amount of money to spend that is needed to spend, which is about $55 billion for debt servicing, is more than we're paying for the military. It's more than we're paying for the health transfers to Canadians, which is Canadians are so frustrated with the challenge in the healthcare system. Well, if the Liberals would be under more control with their spending, with their inflationary spending, then we'd be in a better position for supports. And Conservatives do believe in supports, but we believe in responsible handling of government finances and programs. I talked with my daughter last night, and she said, and she's a smart lady, has a master's degree, has a good paying job, and she says, Dad, I'm just struggling after paying the rent, all these bills, just to make things get by on with a paycheck, going from paycheck to paycheck, and she is making a good salary. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister talked about sacrifices for young people. Will the Liberals not recognize that their program is causing...
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire au ministre de l'Industrie.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, the very high cost of living is a real issue, is something that we understand very well as a direct impact on the lives of average Canadians, Mr. Speaker. However, one needs to know where that high cost of living is coming from. The members opposite have perhaps not realized that we had a COVID crisis in this country, in this world, in this planet, and that in the period following the recovery from COVID, there was a very sharp snapback in economic activity, and given the interruptions in supply chains, that pushed prices way up. And that's where the inflation crisis came all over the world. Not just in Canada, but all over the world, Mr. Speaker. And then, if that wasn't enough, we had the war in Ukraine, which led to, among other things, much higher energy prices, much higher food prices. So there was a global, yes, there was a global rise in inflation, there was a global rise in food prices, and countries around the world reacted to that. That reaction in the case of Canada has brought about positive results. Inflation is now within the range, within the 1 to 3% range. The Bank of Canada, which the members opposite don't appear to like, the Bank of Canada, in fact, has been one of the most successful ones in the G7 to bring inflation back under control. However, the cost of living, so the price level is still high, and that's a problem, and that's something that we are going to address in our budget that will be tabled tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. And in that budget, you will see substantial increase in investment in our economy to make sure that our economy is able to overcome this cost of living crisis, plus the shock coming from the trade war triggered by the United States. We didn't start this, the United States did start the trade war, and our budget will address those issues, we'll support Canadians, we'll make sure that going forward, young Canadians have jobs to be able to have a decent life, Mr. President. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, all I'm hearing from the Liberals is point here, point there, not pointing to themselves, and that's where they need to be pointing. They blame it on COVID. Well, the COVID was worldwide. They blame it upon the Ukraine war. That impacts it worldwide. But why is it Canada is declining in the standard of living compared to the rest of the world, the developed nations? It's because of these Liberals and their policies. You know, I keep on hearing from that side, the generational budget. Well, is it because this deficit and the debt accumulated is going to be passed on to the next generation? Is it because that the debt that they've accumulated is going to be going on for generation after generation? That's what I hear when I hear generational budget. And what about the parliamentary budget officer who told the committee, this is not a funny fiscal outlook. It's really a serious fiscal outlook. We don't use the words unsustainable, lightly. And he says, we don't have a couple years. He says, he's sounding the alarm, Mr. Speaker, and the Liberals aren't hearing it. They have earplugs.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 25, which will be tabled tomorrow, will address these issues. We are going to invest massively. Yes, we are going to invest massively in our economy to make sure that we are able to overcome the shocks we are currently suffering. And we are going to do that, Mr. Speaker, by triggering a wave of private investment like this country has never seen, because we are going to create the appropriate conditions that will lead the private sector to invest heavily. We are also going to make sure that the housing crisis is addressed, and in doing that, we are also already announced that we're lowering taxes on the middle class. So our upcoming budget is ambitious because the time requires an ambitious budget.
The Honourable